You hear rumours of people who won big, who changed their life, advertisements plastered on your chest, emblazoned across the football strip you cherish, which arouses passion in you like nothing else, and your idols, compelling you to seize the chance to build wealth, a better future. And so you begin with a seemingly innocuous simple flutter. Surely it can't do any harm, and just like that, you are ensnared, and the further you go down that rabbit hole, the less innocent things become. European football has a divergent approach towards betting. Take for example the stark contrast between La Liga, where teams are forbidden from promoting gambling operators in their shirts, versus the Premier League, where practically every square inch of team equipment, advertising hoardings and apparel prominently features the logo of the club's several official betting partners. In fact, researchers at the University of London revealed that betting logos have disseminated throughout football to the extent that they are visible on screen for over 70% of the running time of BBC's flagship football highlights programme, Match of the Day. Almost half of all Premier League clubs feature a betting firm's logo front and centre of their shirt this season, with Norwich City the only team without any gambling partner, although not for lack of trying. In this video, we'll delve into the underlying reasons why we gamble, to show you how football betting companies manipulate you for profit.
The most I ever did in a day.
One particular day where I spent £16,000.
Online betting brings in more than two, and almost half of all Premier League teams have gambling companies on their fleet.
So why do we gamble? Money, entertainment, escape, a desire to win. All four are correct, yet these are arguably minor compared to a higher order purpose, a craving for control. Similarly to the way in which millions love fantasy football, or even simulations such as FIFA, it is alluring for fans with a strong emotional attachment to their club to desire a sense of control over their fortune. Researchers postulate that gambling is connected to an intrinsic desire to control destiny, to manipulate luck in order to validate and find meaning in life. And bookies have broadcast a message that you need to gamble to truly immerse yourself in sport. The tendency to overestimate causality and the significance of past events despite mathematical independence further corroborates this. Football is rooted in the belief that the underdogs always have a chance, rousing vehement passion in us, ripe to be exploited and manipulated by the bookies. The tendency to chase losses evokes comparison to your team desperately trying to recover lost points. The tendency to overweight and generalize the significance of small samples, and the tendency to believe that winning has causal explanations but losing arises because of bad luck is a trademark trait of a die-hard football fan. And when an economic choice is influenced by fervent and impassioned biases, this leads to irrational decision making. And remember, these severe cognitive biases exist even before the betting companies proactively seek you out. The average football fan's constant exposure to respected and influential figures acting as walking billboards for sports betting firms often glamorizes betting, effectively veiling the underlying harrowing strain of betting addictions. Yet the number of people with serious gambling addictions is small. Prevalent surveys internationally suggest that about 90% of gamblers gamble with no major problems, and that only between 0.5 to 1% of the general population are serious problem gamblers. You may think that this is a relatively small number, perhaps far less than you envisioned, and you can rest assured that betting companies highlight this evidence. Yet there are other statistics that the gambling industry is less keen to discuss. A recent survey of the UK betting industry found that 30 to 35% of the industry's revenue comes from full-blown problem gamblers. BBC Panorama revealed 78% of revenue from online gambling came from just 4% of customers. Although gambling companies may have no incentive to drive customers to financial ruin, they have every incentive to keep them gambling, even when problems are looming. From the perspective of the bookmaker, the greater the problem, the greater the profit. The bookmaker's subversive tactics also entail using football as a medium to reel young people onto their websites, who were then cross-sold a range of more addictive online games. Approximately 430,000 people suffer from compulsive gambling in the UK alone. And just like a pandemic, there is a snowball effect. For every problem gambler, 6 other close contacts are adversely affected by gambling-related harm, leading to the breakup of families, the loss of employment and of homes, crime, financial ruin, and in the worst cases, suicide. The traditional bookies, construed as a social activity, have evolved over the years into an undeniably increasingly isolating and addictive form. 45% of all sports betting now takes place online. Research shows that sports bettors have higher rates of gambling problems than any other gamblers, and online betting exacerbates this due to the increased convenience and privacy. When's the last time you read a T&Cs or user agreement before accepting it? A Guardian report revealed that gambling operators have been accused of using artificial intelligence to personalise promotions to keep gamblers hooked. Gambling operators have access to vast amounts of data regarding their customers due to their online accounts. They contract third-party companies to harvest people's data, helping bookmakers target people on low incomes and those who have stopped gambling. Those most susceptible to the allure of potential financial success. But little do they know, just like Spurs' trophy chances, this is merely an illusion. Professional sports bettors rarely sustain a long-term winning percentage higher than 55%, which illustrates the sheer complexity of successful sports betting. In all casinos, the games have a built-in house edge, the profit taken from each bet. At the end of the day, the house always wins, and casinos and sports betting websites are businesses. They have to turn a profit to stay alive, and are constantly looking for ways to maximize their income. Which is why, due to advancing technology, bookmakers now offer an increasing variety of complex bets. The traditional bet on a football match was simply a decision on which team would triumph, a home draw away bet. This form of bet is identical between rival bookmakers, and online odds comparison sites allow gamblers to easily identify the bookmaker offering the most attractive odds, hence causing a bookmaker to either reduce profit margins in order to provide more attractive odds or lose out on customers. Not an ideal situation for the shareholders. The house edge on home draw away bets was a constant 10.5% in the late 1990s before falling to a range of 5 to 6% in the mid-2010s. This growing betting product is in-play betting, which is heading towards being the dominant form of sports betting. It's already 70% in Spain and getting on to 50% in the UK. These complex bets only pay off if a quite specific sequence of events occurs. For example, a bet can be offered on the home team to win 2-0, called a correct score bet. Next goal scorer bets are another complex bet category. A scorecaster bet pays out only if the gambler can correctly guess both the identity of the first goal scorer and the correct score of the match. Complex bets can offer bigger potential payoffs for the bettor, which many consumers find attractive. But betting odds reveal a much higher house edge, in the range of 21.9 to 23.2% for correct score bets, over 4 times the edge in home-away draw bets. Complex bets can offer bigger potential payoffs for the bettor, which many consumers find attractive. But betting odds reveal a much higher house edge, in the range of 21 to 23% for correct score bets, over 4 times the edge in home draw away bets, and over 8 times the house edge in European roulette for comparison, placing the average sports bettor at a distinct disadvantage from the off. Bear in mind that these indiscretions were focused mainly on the regulated industry. To delve deeper, we'll be heading across the world to a place with a voracious, if not necessarily above board appetite for gambling: Asia. Gambling in China is illegal under Chinese law and has been outlawed since the Communist Party took power in 1949, with the exception of the casinos of Special Administrative Region Macau and the 2 legal Chinese lotteries. Yet despite this, the Chinese online gaming market is expected to generate sales of $24 billion this year. Adam Kaczynski's book described how gamblers no longer need to track down black market bookmakers in rooms behind backstreet bars. There was a time when they needed cash and a code word. Now they can bet by phone or online. A United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime report recently estimated that $1.7 trillion is wagered on illegal sports betting markets each year. In other words, the value of the illegal sports betting market is over 3 times that of the regulated market. Reuters reports that much of the illegal betting is facilitated by companies registered offshore, particularly in the Philippines, which sells online betting licenses to operators to circumvent local legislation. While operators can claim to be licensed in the Philippines, their sites are often illegal in most jurisdictions in Asia. Josimar Football published a remarkably in-depth analysis on the prevalence of money laundering in such gambling companies. W88, ManBetX and Fun88, to name but a few, are all white-label brands based in Asia that utilise the Premier League as a means of advertising to access this untapped Asian market. These shady brands invest millions in shirt sponsorships and commercial partnerships each year, before vanishing and evolving into a conveyor belt of similar operators. The opacity of these companies is such that they are widely suspected to be connected to a chain of international money laundering schemes. One example, Man United were thought to have earned €3.5 million a year from its deal with Yabo Sports, a Chinese betting company. Despite being registered as recently as 2018, Yabo splashed the cash, signing deals with Leicester City, the Argentina national football team, Hertha Berlin, AS Monaco, Serie A, Copa America, Bayern Munich and AC Milan. Just as remarkably, Yabo Sports did not appear to have any English or even European consumer-facing presence on social media, which begs the question, who is using their platform? Or should I say, was. The company has vanished into thin air in the last few months. The logo, which was once omnipresent across the LED boards at Old Trafford, the Parc des Princes, San Siro and the Allianz Arena, now is never to be seen nor heard from again. As evidenced by the predominantly Mandarin and Thai language advertisements, these companies clearly are not exactly overexerting themselves to enter the British or European market. That a company which did not even exist 4 years ago should be able to invest tens of millions in marketing its brand globally says a lot about the scale of the business it is involved in, and of the profits that can be made. The English language Twitter account of Laba360, once the official sponsor of Burnley, has a mere 213 followers, although that admittedly is still 212 more than Disport. A good example of this is how LoveBet succeeded the aforementioned Laba360 as Burnley's new shirt sponsor, when in fact both brands are of the same entity. Yet before you bring out the pitchforks, it is imperative that we analyse the positive, or at least slightly less negative side of sports betting. The fact of the matter is that betting companies bankroll football, and despite the gambling regulatory authorities' failure to crack down on shady business dealings in the gambling industry, you can at least be sure that the footballing pyramid and its clubs have the fans' best interests at heart. Or not, it will come as little surprise to you that 3 out of the top 4 leagues in the English footballing structure are named and bankrolled by Flutter-owned gambling group Sky Bet. The main reason underpinning the footballing pyramid's reliance on the betting industry is predictably money. Unlike the global reach of the Premier League, there is little incentive for brands from other sectors to invest in the EFL. They simply don't pick up enough exposure to their target market, in contrast to the betting industry. Shirt sponsorships are among the biggest commercial deals available to football clubs, and over £40 million of annual revenue is at stake for the EFL's 72 clubs. More than 60 of the EFL clubs also have coexisting arrangements with competitor betting brands to Sky Bet. Although the Premier League has the highest value sponsorships, its dependence on the source of income is low. The typical value of a shirt sponsorship deal for a top flight club is only 5 to 10 million per year, whilst even the weakest club in the league receives more than 125 million, thanks mainly to broadcasting right income. To compound this reliance, smaller clubs' finance are bad enough anyways. Championship clubs' aggregate wages to revenue grew to 120% in 2019-20, an all-time high, and up from 107% in 2018-19. Moreover, the financial situation of some of them has been exacerbated due to the impact of the coronavirus pandemic on sport, further highlighting the insolvencies that would be caused by a deprival of a club's main source of revenue. Many of these clubs and competitions would face difficulty in replacing their betting sponsors, compromising the scale at which they could operate and the quality of talent which they could attract. Richard Masters, Chief Executive of the Premier League, told a parliamentary inquiry in November 2020 that, "I believe very strongly that they activate the partnership in a responsible way. I think you are seeing an element of self-regulation on behalf of the betting and gambling companies at the moment as well." Yet months later, the self-regulation standards were epitomised by the glorified footballing stock market Football Index's collapse. The company had portrayed itself as a safer investment platform as opposed to the archetypal casino-style gambling platform. The brand occupied front of shirt sponsor for several teams, including Queen's Park Rangers and Nottingham Forest, which legitimised their offering to hundreds of thousands of fans. When the company imploded, many users were financially devastated without restitution. However, the much publicised position of the gambling industry is that the great majority of gamblers gamble within their means and refrain from exceeding their discretionary expenditure limits. Gambling can enhance a bettor's enjoyment of sport, plus the industry stresses the benefits to society, to employment, to tourism and to taxation. The argument that the onus of maintaining self-control lies upon the individual, not the bookmaker, also has some merit. Despite the often deplorable advertising tactics and lack of safeguards, the ultimate responsibility for their actions lies upon the bettor. Recovering gambling addicts are helped by the many addiction support organisations who tirelessly work to support those who most need it, and we shall properly acknowledge them shortly. The ubiquitous advertisements also have an impact on the next generation of sports fans. 75% of 8 to 16-year-olds think betting is a normal part of sport. So facing a maelstrom of negative publicity due to their immoral actions, the betting industry collectively volunteered to stop advertising during games, the so-called whistle-to-whistle ban, amid mounting concern that young fans were being bombarded with gambling ads, which came into force in August 2019. This meant gambling advertising is prohibited during live football television before the 9 PM watershed for a whistle-to-whistle period beginning 5 minutes before the start of the game and finishing 5 minutes after the match has ended. It is not overly mentally taxing to realise a ban from 5 minutes before to 5 minutes after a match is obviously of very limited use when viewers, including children, are exposed to a plethora of gambling advertising on shirts throughout the match. The chief executive of William Hill stated that the UK regulation, which broadly keeps 98% of play within the licence regime, is very successful. Advertising is one of the ways that gambling companies are able to compete for market share. It is also one of the primary advantages that licensed and regulated operators have over the black market. Prohibiting all gambling advertising would undermine the regulated industry, tarring it with the same brush as the illegal black market. If we are really serious about protecting people in difficulty with gambling addiction, then it is imperative that we regulate the illicit tactics used by the betting industry, limit their exposure to impressionable and vulnerable people, educate the general population about the damaging effects and true nature of gambling, and invest further in establishing a network of community-based teams and specialist inpatient units. Countless organisations are striving tirelessly to make a significant difference in the lives of thousands of affected people, and the description below contains links with more information, which I implore you to check out. Thank you for watching.